Hey everybody, welcome back to the MLB Draft Podcast. I'm your host, Travis Chick, and I'm joined today again by my partner, Will McGuffey. Will, welcome back to the show.
Appreciate it. Looking for round two today. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you did so good in the first one. We just had to invite you back. So
appreciate it.
I'm really excited about this episode. And today we get to continue our college coaching series, interviewing another powerhouse recruiting coordinator from the SEC. This is a program that since 2007 has produced 19 major league players and 85 draft picks, and also multiple top 5 recruiting classes. Please welcome to the show LSU Tiger assistant coach and recruiting coordinator Nolan Cain. Coach Cain, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for joining us. We're excited here. One of the things I personally find so impressive about the LSU is just the consistency in which top talent is produced. I can remember back in my playing days constantly going against the LSU Tigers back in pro ball, and so it's just it's a consistency that I think you guys consistently put out. And so what I'd like to focus our discussion today is on your experience, keeping guys focused during the season. I think this year, especially during the draft year, but this year is probably different than any season that you guys have had in the past because of the extra eligibility. So you probably have more draft eligible players than you've ever had on a team. So what are you guys going to do to navigate that, and what have you kind of done in the past to help successfully navigate players to keep them focused on winning a national championship for LSU rather than just kind of thinking about the draft?
Yeah, the roster management this year, it's always difficult. We're always running up against the draft. We have obviously seniors that are moving on. You've got juniors that are draft eligible. Here at LSU, we've had a lot of guys decide to come back. As Will knows, the Cole Freemans and the Kramer Robertsons. And we've had draft eligible sophomores like Greg Dykeman that have come back for the junior year. And then you got your incoming class. And this year was just very, very difficult. 5-round draft, and then you had the free agent stuff. We ended up having 2 guys drafted. One of Will's former guys, Cole Henry,
right,
Daniel Cabrera, and then we had two juniors that could have came back for another year. They signed free agent because now you're trying to give them advice, and their advisors and agents are giving them advice. These guys are going to be 23 years old at the draft. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Do they need to get their pro career started?
Sure.
And they eventually, made the decision to move on and start their pro careers, which we fully support. But
Sure.
A lot of this stuff didn't happen until early August.
Oh yeah.
There's at that point there's not a lot of players that are available out there that can play at this level. But it was a crazy, wild year all the way starting back. I remember when our administrator Aston called me. I was driving to Pensacola, Florida to see a JUCO game. And he's like, "Hey, you got to get back. It's over. Like, the pandemic's hitting, COVID's getting bad.
Yeah.
They're shutting everything down. We're not going to Ole Miss to play." And so they pulled me right off the road. So I drove 7 hours that day. Didn't see a game.
Perfect.
So, it was a lot of fun. But, even going back to, our end of the year team meeting was done on a conference call. You didn't even have Zoom. Nobody even really knew what Zoom was at that point. So it was
now
crazy.
We all do.
Yeah, now we all do. Our whole life is on Zoom. The balance of everything, the weirdness of everything. And then moving forward with this year, you made a comment, we probably have more draft eligible players, and it's really on our pitching side. So now we're in this really weird back and forth teetering phase where, we're losing probably 10 of our best pitchers this year.
Right.
And all of our position players are young. We have 2 draft eligible guys that will probably get drafted this year that are going to be starters for us that, could return for their senior year. And next year, all of our arms are going to be sophomores or freshmen. So now we're in this kind of teetering back and forth phase and trying to find a way to balance it out. Is what we're currently trying to do, but a lot of it is out of our hands with this early recruiting. A lot of your recruiting classes are done by the time these kids are going into their junior years now. Now you're just waiting to be able to sign them. You're waiting for the Major League Baseball draft, like I just talked about a there's a real balance to this, and it's made it even more difficult. Guys getting years of eligibility back.
Yeah. How have you seen on the mental side of this? How's that affected guys? I know, we talked to obviously our clients and a lot of coaches out there, and it seems like program to program it's a little bit different. But how have you kept your guys focused? How has this affected guys mentally in regards to thinking about college baseball? Is the season going to happen or not? And then those guys that did have the opportunity last year, hey, I had my opportunity taken away, so to speak, in regards to the draft, but I do have a year of eligibility back. What's the thought process? What are you seeing from those guys? How do you keep them, focused on what they're doing today?
Well, mentally with our current players, it feels back to normal. I mean, the expectations at LSU are so high. So we've led the nation in attendance for 25 straight years. It's going to be a little different this year with 25% capacity. So it won't be the crowds that our guys are used to or whatever. But the social media pressure that's on these guys, I mean, after every game, you have 10, 11, 12 writers that are, talking to Coach Mary after the game, a win, a loss. You went 4 for 4, you threw a no-hitter, you got crushed, you went 0 for 4 with 2 errors. Like, the expectations of LSU baseball are so high that, our guys are attacking everything head on. Our guys, they work so hard because all of them have the talent and the ability. And we always say right now that carrot that's dangling out there of pro baseball. That's what drives these guys to work so hard in the weight room during practice. We have to. It's been a little easier with COVID because we haven't been able to let these guys come and go as much as they normally do. But we have certain times where the field is just open, or the cages are just open. Hour segments where, hey, if you want to get extra work, this is your time to do it. And it's always filled up. I probably get down on one hand the times that, guys have made available to them where they're not down. But I think the toughest thing has been academically. LSU has a great support system here academically. We have the Cox Communications Academic Center where they are, in the traditional year, they're running 1,400 hours a week tutoring sessions, like face-to-face, whether it's one-on-one, group sessions. And now they're doing a lot of that via Zoom. And I think that, the guys are, especially the freshmen, it's always a big adjustment to LSU. LSU's a big place, the expectations that was talked about. But it's been a big adjustment for these guys academically. So they haven't had that face-to-face time with their teachers. They haven't had that face-to-face time with their academic advisor, their strategy tutor, whatever it is. So it's been a different year, but our guys are handling it very well. We're handling it well as a staff. And I think that, I guess what I'm trying to say to wrap this up is the expectations of LSU going to Omaha and competing for national championships is kind of that glue that really holds these guys together, because they know at the end of the day, once the season starts, it's all about them, what they do and how they perform.
I'm glad you speak a lot about the expectations. I can certainly relate to the maturity that the LSU guys had coming out of the draft and playing against them straight into pro ball. It's pretty obvious, that you guys are out there to win national championships every year. And so, one of the things that you talked about earlier was, the beat reporters kind of in the clubhouse. And it reminded me that, scouts are probably the same way. They're sitting on the sidelines, watching these guys, trying to figure out who's the best. And, we're all human. We all want everybody to be impressed by what we do, right? So, for the guys that are really in that top round discussion, the first, second rounders, the ones that are going to have real financial decisions to make, it's hard to not think about, hey, I'm about to make millions of dollars. So what have you guys done or maybe provided information for or whatever? Like, how have you helped those guys, kind of set aside the fact that, hey, I've got millions of dollars in front of me, but still go out there and kind of tune out the noise of, hey, there's scouts watching me here, or agents beating down my door, or financial teams beating down my door. Like, well, how do you keep them locked into that national championship focus?
Well, I think the easiest part is that a lot of these decisions with these kids have been made on the front end. The vast majority of our guys, have advisors, have financial guys coming out of high school, going into the draft at 18 years old. They kind of have their team kind of put together. they lean on us a lot. I can remember, Greg Dyken, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
He was a draft eligible sophomore, and about 3/4 of the way through his sophomore year, he went and talked to Coach Mary. He's like, hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
Coach was like, I can't answer that question for you.
Yeah.
You got to answer that question for yourself. And they had a really good conversation. And then, Greg was like, Coach, I really want your opinion. I was like, listen, I think if you come back next year, you were hurt as a freshman, you're finally playing, you're finally starting, you had a great summer, you had a great fall, you had a great spring scrimmage session. Now you're having a great season. I think that, you're just scratching the surface of what your value is going to be a year from now. And sure enough, a year later, he goes supplemental first round. And, I saw the other day that he might be projected to be the Oakland A's starting right fielder. So it's all working out for that kid. And there's certain times where, we have to push kids out the door and say, hey, man, it's time to go. You can't come back. Your stock's at an all-time high. And LSU's a tough place to leave just because our guys are famous. Our guys are rock stars in this town. These guys can go across the street to walk-ons without people coming up and, hey, will you take a picture? I mean, it's a pretty good life, So, but those teams and those things that are put together are done on the front end. And coming out of high school, very rarely does somebody, switch agents or advisors while they're here.
Right.
They pretty much stick to people that they're with. But, from us, we're just there to guide these kids. And that's why we got into this. I mean, we all got into this in coaching. We want to listen. I want to Omaha win national championships, and I want to have a great coaching career. But we did this to be around those guys all the time. In our life experiences, even though I'm 35, these guys, think I have all the wisdom in the world. Sometimes just being there to listen and open your ears and understand what they're going through and what they want, and be able to give them advice from experiences that you've had. It kind of helps them mold and make their decisions on their own.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to park on that real quick, because one of the things that you really hit on there, it seems like, and we stress this over and over and over and over again with the players that we ultimately end up representing, is being prepared. You talked about some of the players that are coming out of high school already having their advisors in place and their agents in place. And maybe those are the same thing. Maybe they're not. We'll figure that out one of these days. But, it seems the earlier these guys are prepared to be able to remove the emotion from the decision, not only do we see that benefit them on the financial side, but it sounds like, even on the college side, it helps eliminate a lot of those distractions too. And so I guess if you could give any advice to maybe future LSU Tigers, and I know we're not going to get down that road too far, but and then obviously current LSU Tigers that are going to the draft, like how much would you stress, being prepared off the field helps you guys be prepared on the field?
I think the guys that I've seen go through this process the best, whether they've come to school or they signed pro out of high school, they all had a really good plan.
Yeah.
They almost had pros and cons lists. They maybe had a number or, hey, if I get X, I'm going. This is what it's going to take for me to miss that experience in college baseball, college athletics, and be a student athlete, right? And I think that when everybody's on the same page, when it's the player, the mom, the dad, the advisor, the other team that's around them, I think when everybody's on the same page and that is a defined area, it takes the emotion out of it. Because the biggest thing that happens is when you see the kids that aren't prepared for this, and I don't have a better word for this, but it's the ego, it's the emotion piece of this, and going, well, I played against that guy, and he just went in the second round, and all of a sudden, like, I do have an opportunity to sign the fourth, and I'm just sure, well, hey, dude, listen, like, if all those other shortstops signed before you, and you go to college, and now you're one of the top 3 college shortstops 3 years from now, with the way that Major League Baseball values the college numbers and the college players, now you're going to be that first round.
Yeah. Go be the first rounder and go prove yourself in the SEC. Go have a career at a university where you're going to have a legacy afterwards.
Yeah. I can promise you it's more fun to, I don't know this personally, but I can bet it's a lot more fun to play at LSU when you're 18, 19, and 20 than in places like Jamestown, New York. So,
yeah. And I think that when you have that plan, when you have, a solidified plan, it takes the emotion out.
Yeah.
How do y'all?
That's where kids make not bad decisions. I think that's when kids waver from what they really want to go back.
Right.
Okay, I had a great game today. I'm going to be a first rounder. I'm signing. And then you have a bad game or you have a bad week, and I'm going to college now.
It's
a lot of these kids. They're in such a win-win. They're either going to be a millionaire or they're going to be playing at their dream school.
Or they're maybe going to be treated like a millionaire at LA.
It's funny you say that emotion wavers back and forth and without naming names or players, but I have literally been at a game where I had a recruit that this is back when I was as an advisor. I was watching a college baseball game. There was a recruit there that I was working with, wasn't sitting anywhere near the individual. And in the middle of the game, they text me and they're like, man, I'm not ready to go in the major league draft. And I think part of it was they were sitting in the emotion. It was an unbelievable game, 2 top 15 teams, Friday night going in front of 8,000 people. And it was a stark contrast to the conversation that was had a week earlier. So that emotional swing when you're talking about these 18-year-old kids goes back and forth. And I've seen it happen in real time sitting in an SEC stadium before. And it was hard to, it's hard to really, I guess, understand that emotion that individual is going through. And as much as we deal with it, and as much as we sit there and walk through, families in this scenario every single year for the past 15 years, it's still really hard to be in those shoes and understand what that person is actually feeling during that time. Yeah. As far as that goes, Nolan, what do y'all, I guess on the financial, everybody knows about the advisor piece and how that's, a lot earlier than it used to be. And it comes into play way before we do. Our thought process is always, we want to prepare and educate on the financial side and on the wealth management side as much as possible in advance as well, because it gives you leverage and it gives you the ability to have no emotion and have your plan in place. Is there anything that y'all do, LSU, that y'all can give or y'all can assist players with on the wealth management side, on the, hey, this is a financial breakdown, or hey, this is the career path that you're looking at versus, coming to LSU? What type of resources are y'all able to give and can y'all give to potential recruits? And then also on the backside, when you're talking about guys like the Dykeman came in and sat down, what other types of advice and tools can y'all give to those players that are in your program currently?
I just want to go back real quick and then we'll talk about the kind of the education, the financial piece that we did. But, back to the emotion and having a plan, it's like, you don't make emotion-based decisions in a business. And when you're going into professional baseball, you are going into 1,000% a business. So that's when you have that. That's why we try to help these kids take the emotion out and make it be hey, this is a cut and dry thing. You don't have to tell me your number. I don't want to know your number. Okay? Yeah. But whatever that is, stick to it. Stick to your plan and have a plan and roll forward. But as far as the financial stuff, listen, you usually have a relationship with the advisors. Maybe not so much the financial people with these kids out of high school, just because, for me, I'm trying to gather information. So I have relationships with the advisors and, kind of see what they're thinking. It helps me protect my program. I told Will this 1,000 times, and Will was great at it, and that's why we have a great relationship. But I would say, Will, listen, if he's going to sign, just let me know, because that helps me protect my program.
Sure. It
helps me maybe go get that junior college player, or maybe that late pop-up developer that's a senior in high school that we've been building a relationship with. It's down to us, 3 or 4 other schools, right? And I think for us, that's where the relationship is so important with those people. But from a financial standpoint, I have a very stock kind of breakdown of what $1 million, what $1.5 million with $2 million looks like, after taxes, after you pay your advisor, after you buy a car, after you buy a house, these things and then what that looks like 6-7 years in minor league baseball, if you don't make it to the big leagues. And what are you holding in your bank account after you just live a normal lifestyle? And then, what I try to do is also compare that to, going through the college experience, graduating, having a college degree, what you would make out of college, and where you would be at that same point in your life if you had a college degree. And take me, for instance, I played at LSU, won a national championship, didn't get drafted, signed free agent, went and played for a year and a half, but I played pretty freely because I had a college degree, so I knew as a free agent they could walk in and be like, hey, Nolan, that's even if I had a 2 ERA, it wasn't going to matter because it's about those younger players that are coming up through the organization. And back to what I said a few minutes ago, it is a business. So I played with very little pressure and had a good pro career and eventually had to hang it up, but right away went into a job at Marucci Sports. I always wanted to go into coaching. Those opportunities weren't there at that point. My wife was coaching LSU softball. I worked at Marucci, and then a spot came available on LSU baseball staff. Coach Mary hires me. Now I'm the director of baseball operations, and now I'm the volunteer assistant. And then our recruiting coordinator takes a head coaching job in the SEC, and then I move up to that. Now I've been doing this for 6 years, and then hopefully I'll be a head coach in the next 3 or 4 years. And that's now I'm 35. It's amazing. I see these guys at LSU that are getting ready for spring training and stuff. They're my age and they're still playing. I'm like, dude, you're still playing.
Oh yeah.
My body feels so bad. I don't even know how you're still playing baseball. But I mean,
you're preaching to the choir right now.
Life, 2 different courses of life, and I think that when you have that college degree, when you have that college experience, or being so close. If you're a junior, the way that Coach Mary runs this program, you're not taking basketball. You are taking classes to go towards the degree. And we're proud of all these guys that made major leagues. But we've had 20 guys that have gone into pro ball without their degrees that have come back and gotten it while they were still playing because they were so close to getting it. And that's what it's all about for us.
That's awesome. That's great. And, one of the things that you hit on there that really resonates with me is it ties back into what is my number, and we all know that in baseball, because it is a business, every player out there actually has a market value. But that's going to be dictated by what the scouts and your ability on the field has. But we also know that, and you guys just proved that with the point that all these guys are coming back and going to school, like everybody has a value, a human capital number that they're going to be able to go out and achieve on their own without baseball. And so one of the things that we always try to do is, take into what the value of an LSU education is, what the value of that degree is, what the value of the network that you've created there, what the value of your future job would be. And what we can do is take some financial analysis and bring that back into a present value that says, hey, the value of me going to an LSU or a Texas A&M or a Vanderbilt, pick a school, right? There's some value to that. And it just really helps bring these guys into what their numbers should be. And I think there's a disconnect from what we see in, where agents and guys on our side kind of have conflicting ideas is, an agent's going to go out and say, hey, he throws 100 miles an hour. His market value is $6 million. But they discount the fact that, hey, this guy's number one in his class and he's got a full scholarship to LSU. He wants to be an attorney. His intrinsic value, his human capital number might be $7, $8, $10 million, right? Like we can't find that out until we actually do the math on that. But where I'm going with this is so often we hear, there's several agencies out there that say, hey, you don't need a financial advisor before the draft. Wait till after the draft. You don't have any money. And especially now with the breakdown of how the draft is, they're getting $100,000 this year, and then the rest of it's paid out over the next couple of years. I think it's really putting them into this disconnect of taking financial advice from people that aren't actually qualified to give financial advice. And so if you could lend any, current players, future players, any advice on that, and like it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, just being prepared. But, I guess where I'm going is, do you see that as a legitimate thing? Like, hey, you don't need a financial team before the draft. You don't need financial advice before the draft. It seems so weird that you're getting a business decision, but you're not taking financial advice from that.
I think if you're that caliber of player and you're not getting financial advice from somebody that not just is a financial advisor, but is working in the sports world and
Sure.
contracts and all those things. I think you're only getting 90% of the picture. If you're making a life-changing decision, I think you need to have all your bases covered, and I think you need to 100% go with the ins and outs of
sure.
what you're getting into. And listen, at 18 years old, I mean, we've all
You can barely tie our shoes. Right?
you don't know.
Yeah.
And you try to lean on your mom and your dad, but I mean, I didn't think my dad did anything either.
Right.
Just like you guys probably did.
Yeah, same way.
About age 30, I started to realize they knew a whole lot more than what I thought they did.
So when you have that team in place, when you have a full team in place, I mean, I think that's just giving you the full spectrum of everything you're putting from A to Z. I mean, if you don't, then you're going from A to T.
You just got more ammunition to make that decision, which we all have alluded to is life changing. So the more information you have to make the decision, the better off you are, and the better off you're going to be able to stick to that plan and take emotion out of it and say, hey, look, this is why I made this decision. This is why I picked this number. And those are the reasons that I'm going to stick to it. If there's any holes in that, then there's a chance that you're going to, flip at the last minute and make a decision that might impact your life, negatively.
Yeah. And you said something earlier that people don't think about, but networks, Travis, because you don't know what a network is when you're 18.
Yeah.
But
well, what a social network is.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of financial. Well, maybe there is now. The world is changing, but.
Will knows from being around the program so much that, I mean, I've got guys that I played with at LSU that were good players, not starting players, but fully took advantage of the platform of LSU, and they were huge out in the community, did a lot of community service, and did a lot of things for kids, going to elementary schools and reading to them, and build this network and get a little publicity for it. And this, have buddies that are making $400,000.
Yeah.
They didn't get drafted. They had nothing to do with baseball except for they took advantage of the network that was in place for them.
Absolutely.
And they took that to an extreme, took it to the fullest factor. And they're some of the most successful. They're as successful as Anthony Ronaldo, who signed for $2.5 million and played in the big leagues for 4 or 5 years. These guys now they're teaming up and doing business, ventures together. I mean, that's the network that those guys that not just that you play with, not just the name that you build in Louisiana and Baton Rouge, being an LSU Tigers, but within that locker room, those guys are going to go on to do other things, and I think that's something that gets overlooked. You're going to a program, pick one in the SEC, pick one in the ACC, pick one in the Big 12, right? Those programs that your networks are phenomenal and off the charts. And I think that those are the things that you don't think of when you're 18 years old.
There was and I was thinking about this, kind of leading into today. There was probably 5 or 6 years ago. There was a player, he was a role player, started a little bit here and there, some injuries, local kid. And I think it was a super regional. He hits a walk-off home run to win the game. And he hit that walk-off home run, and it was a big moment. Everybody knew about it. Everybody talked about it. And I just turned to my wife and I go, that guy just made millions of dollars and is set for life now. And she goes, what are you talking about? And I said, people are going to remember him for the rest of their lives from that single home run. And he had played less and less as the season had gone on. And I said, he's employable for the rest of his life. He's going to get great jobs, as long as he, just from that one moment. And it's true. It really is. And you alluded to it. You see guys around town all the time. I'm not from here, but I've lived here now since 2008. And you run into people all the time in business, and whether they're, sales or they're doctors or the dentists or attorneys or whatever it might be. And none of them made it in the big leagues. Some of them did make it in the big leagues for a brief amount of time, but they're all successful after the fact. And a lot of that is to, like you said, the network and being involved and having that name and association with the program that takes you a lot further than what your on-field talents take you.
Yeah, it's funny. You always hear the term. It's who you know, but it's also who knows you.
And you get that access. You get people want to. That's the crazy thing that people don't understand is people want to when you're at one of these programs, people want to meet you, and you get those opportunities to shake hands and talk to people and introduce yourself and make an impression on people that you normally wouldn't get the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
Hey, I might be getting a little bit off topic here, Travis, but you said something earlier about controlling the controllables.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these kids, don't understand just the way that the draft works. There are 30 major league teams, and some of them are analytical, some are pro high school, some are more pro college player.
Right.
They all have their own philosophies. That doesn't mean they're right. That doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean that we're right. It doesn't mean that our process is better. It doesn't mean college. It's person to person, field to field. But we have a player that's on our campus now that's got a chance to be one of the best players to ever come through LSU. Yeah. And the thing that sticks out to me about his process was just he always wanted to play at LSU, number one. But he valued that so much. And you're watching this kid go through his senior year starting in Jupiter, and all of a sudden, like you're watching him play, and Will's been through this before, you get this prospect breakdown period where it's like, what can this guy not do? And then you have the profiles of the draft. First base out of high school isn't a great profile. Right outfielders out of high school isn't a great profile. And this kid's still a top 10 player in his class, but because of the way that the draft works out, and pro college teams, major league teams, some are looking for high end arms, some are now looking for that corner third base power bat profile, and he just didn't meet the profile of what they're looking for out of high school. But now he comes here and takes care of business, does the things that we've seen him do so far. This is going to be a top 10 pick. Yeah. And, instead of contemplating $1.5 million to $2 million out of high school, this guy's going to get 6, 7, 8 million. And then
life-changing money.
Straight to high. Yeah, it's going to jump straight to high A, straight to double A. And I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about the decision you made. I'm talking about people don't understand the draft. They don't understand the way that it really works. And Major League Baseball, the individual teams, they have their own process. They have their own algorithms now. They have a model of things. So just because you don't go in the top 60 picks like you thought you were, doesn't mean that you're not still a good player. It doesn't mean that you should panic and just sign. It just means that you're not meeting what those profiles are for those high-end draft picks. Some teams are going to take the chance on that guy that throws 100 with a power slider. Maybe doesn't really have command yet, but we get him in our organization, send him to rookie ball, we send him to low A. We put him on the path, and then 5 years from now, he's a big leaguer. Yeah. He's the number one starter. Those things happen all the time. But it doesn't mean that you're not a good player if it doesn't happen before you're 18 years old. There's millions of kids playing baseball, and Major League Baseball has 1,500 picks every year.
Yeah, I'd love to expand on that, actually, kind of shift gears to talk baseball a minute, because, we've all seen the technology shift in the game. I mean, it's, spin rate this, spin efficiency here, launch angle that, and all that stuff. And so talking about the different profiles and the different needs of all the college teams, I guess, do you guys have profiles for different teams? So you kind of know what they're looking for. And I mean, not that matters in how you coach the team, but I mean, I feel like so many colleges, and going through your program, the Aaron Nola pitching center, like the investment in you guys to be able to develop talent is pretty unbelievable. So, how do you guys match being able to advance your players, but also being able to disseminate the right information to these players and say, hey, here's my draft book, for example. Here's my measurables, right? Like, how can you match what these players are looking for to develop themselves, but also be able to match what these MLB organizations are looking for?
Well, I think the college and Major League Baseball technology, I think we've worked pretty good together. I mean, LSU, we were the first program to have TrackMan. We were part of the pilot program back in 2012, and we didn't even know what we were looking for. You start looking at
those numbers are cool.
You start looking at exit speeds and this stuff, and then now we're looking at PFXC and PFXX and induced vertical break and vertical approach angle, and I think the technology really tells a story of why a guy is good. And Will's seen it, and I'm sure
we've had plenty of breakdowns on that.
Why do you show up and some guy's throwing 92?
Yeah.
Right down the middle of the plate.
Measures the immeasurable.
35% swing and miss. And he's getting popped ups to center field. And then you got this guy that's throwing 97 that's just getting barreled all over the place. And you start looking at it, and they got the release heights and the extensions and the horizontal and vertical movements in it. What I've learned is it all goes back to what you see with your eyes. Yeah. It tells you, okay, we've always known that ball really, the old term of, man, that ball really carries or rides through the set.
Heavier.
But now we say he's got 18 inches of induced vertical break.
It used to be a bowling ball, right? They called it a bowling ball back in the day. I
still call it a bowling ball.
So and listen, I think the Rapsodo and the TrackMan, it allows you to go, hey, dude, listen, this is what makes you really good.
Right.
You do X, and this happens, dude, you're really successful. Now, when you get outside of this, okay, your hand gets on the side of the ball, and now it's just flat and straight. With your release height extension, you can get pounded, okay?
Yeah.
And I think when you flip those things on during a bullpen, and they can feel when that ball's at 12, 15 out of their hand, as opposed to 130, on the spin rates and the tilts and stuff. I think that when a guy can feel that and they can see it and go, there we go.
Know what it is.
But there's been plenty of times to bring a guy in and you're like, hey, dude, listen, man, just throw the fastball right at the catcher's face mask. Just throw it right at his face mask. Okay, you're going to have, and they do it and they're like, now this confidence grows because now they're having success and they know why they're having success. And now, I remember when I was a pitcher, 05 to 09, we didn't have anything,
Yeah.
And man, I'm throwing good. Boom, I keep doing what I'm doing. Get pounded one time. Oh, back to the drawing board. Okay, go 3 quarters now. And it's like, dude, what were you doing back then? And I think that was probably maybe a little bit of a lack of confidence, or a lack of understanding. But now it's easier to get these guys back on track. We have synergy, Sidex bats, and we have Rapsodo. And there's no secret to it. Offensively, guys that hit the ball hard consistently, they get a lot of hits. It's really cool when they throw up the LSU baseball data graphic that hit a ball 111, hit the ball hard consistently, you can get hits, and you hit the ball from 10 to 25 degree launch angles, you're going to get a lot of hits. And I think maybe if you're training those things, but we don't necessarily do that as in take a swing and look, okay, that was 11 degrees. It's more for us in our cages. We have a yellow line. And when we're hitting the cages, we're trying to stay on that yellow line. How many times can we repeat that swing? Because you get everything of feel versus real. We've all seen the video of Albert Pujols talking about, take that knob right down to the baseball. Then you see a swing of the game, he's not even relatively coming close to doing that. But that's what he feels. He's doing. So his feel versus real, and how you coach all these guys. And, we've even started doing this S2 cognition test, testing our players, mental capabilities, how they learn, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And then it gives you a regimen of, hey, this guy's really good at X, Y, and Z. He's not good at this. Here are the things that, maybe his depth perception is not good. These are the ways that he can work. Maybe his timing is not good. These are the ways that we can work and try to turn those deficiencies into positive. Maybe that makes them a completely different player. But there's so much stuff out there, and we talk about all the time. What are we going to spend our 20 hours a week on? Got to take ground balls, and we've got to play catch, and we've got to scrimmage, and you've got to lift and condition, and how much of this stuff are we going to dedicate ourselves to? How much of this stuff are we going to make available to these kids? And I think we put them on a really, what we feel is a really good, plan and regimen. We use a lot of this stuff, and we talk a lot about this stuff. But I think when data and TrackMan and Rapsodo, this stuff, I think when these things be video, when these things become a crutch of you have a bad day, and the first thing you see a guy in the video room, and you just let it go out there. That's, I think we have a good blend of all of those things. And back to what I said earlier, I've learned so much from major league teams that we have relationships with, where their analytical people have spent time with me on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm not going to give you the answers to the test, but go look at this." And
That's
we
great.
have data, you can filter it, you can do this, and they've called me and said, "Hey, what do you have with this? And what do you look for? Have you seen anything new recently?" And to be able to go back and forth. And I think people think that Major League Baseball and college baseball don't have a relationship. Some of our best friends in this game are scouts. We have.
I used to have to. I used to have to call Nolan and ask him for the answers to the test. I'd just be like, "Hey, dude, let's just skip the lesson. Let's just go straight to the answer portion." And learned a lot. Because Nolan's been on the forefront and cutting edge of trying to understand. He's been doing this for years, and it was always when I would get a chance to go sit down and just kind of talk shop and what's coming down the pipeline. It was amazing to hear it, and the things he was talking about years ago are now, taking hold and are becoming more mainstream, but it's information he was parsing through. And I think what you just said, I think a couple of things. One, colleges, it seems like with the technology, y'all been able to bridge the gap a little bit. Cause I know a lot of people say, hey, there's a development gap that colleges don't do that professional baseball, enhances. I think with the technology and being able to look and be on the same page with major league organizations and say, hey, this is what those teams are looking for. And this is what you need to do, and here's how we're going to do it. And then having that relationship where you and the teams are openly talking about the technology and the data, because I think at the end of the day, everybody wants the same thing. If you're going to be a successful college program, you're going to have successful college baseball players. Those successful college baseball players want to be Major League Baseball players. They're going to go up there, and the things that you're going to continue on and learn to win a World Series at the big league level are the same things that you can learn in college and start working on and start having some of those same philosophies. And while everybody's different, you still start learning some of those lessons and implementing them at a younger age. And I think it's great that there is that collaborative relationship between Major League Baseball and clubs like you.
I think you've seen more crossover back both sides. You see so many guys getting hired from college and professional baseball. I've had opportunities to interview for jobs in professional baseball. And you see a lot of pro guys. Our pitching coach, Alan Dunn, spent 3 years in the big leagues as an assistant pitching coach, and spent 15 years as a minor league coordinator, and just got tired of that life of the travel and this stuff. And he loves to coach his pitchers. He wants his 15 to 16, 18 pitchers. Give me these guys, and he's in the fight with them every single day. And that's what he wants to do. He didn't want to be, the rover, if you will, of, hey, I'm 7 days in AAA, I'm 7 days in AA, I'm 7 days in high A. And, he just felt like he wasn't having that direct impact. He was, he was helping and teaching, but he was really the decision maker. When a guy went down in the big leagues, hey, who should we bring up? Okay, we brought this guy up. Who needs to go to AAA? Who needs to go to AA? So you almost, he was losing that passion of being there in a bullpen. When he first got here, he used to throw the gear on and catch the
I witnessed that before.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And I think that crossover is great. Baseball, as we all know, listen, we all know each other.
Sure.
I mean,
everybody knows. It's a tight network.
Everybody's one person away from knowing this guy.
Right.
And, as a player, you never know who I know that's going to get in touch with me about you positively or negatively. You never know that reach of the baseball network.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important. That's really important advice for anybody, the draft picks especially, to understand. Like, hey, if you're really a bad dude internally, but you're a good player, it's not going to be hard to figure out who that bad dude actually is, because this network I mean, I can pick up the phone and call any scout, or get in touch with any scout. You can obviously do the same. We can get in touch with college coaches, and it's kind of it's all about information flow, and it goes back to who knows you. But obviously, Coach, I want to be super sensitive of your time. I know you're out there trying to win a national championship. So if there's any kind of parting words you might have for some of these guys, or anything else you want to hit on briefly, we'd love to hear it. But obviously, like I said, want to be sensitive to your time. So,
yeah, I think, these days, these kids are growing up with stuff that we don't necessarily fully even understand because we didn't grow up with it. But, the social media and those type of platforms, just be very careful about those. Be careful about platforms, social media, rankings, worrying about all this stuff. There's a lot of kids that want to play at LSU. There's a lot of kids that want to play in the SEC. We can only take so many guys here. In a traditional year, we have a 35-man roster. I mean, how many kids do you think we're able? Just because you're not getting those opportunities doesn't mean that you're not a good player. That doesn't mean that. Listen, there's really good baseball playing all across Division I baseball.
right.
We got our teeth kicked in the Super Regional in 2016 by Coastal Carolina, who went on to win the national championship. Okay, There are good programs, there are good places to play everywhere, and that is from NAIA, junior college, Division III, Division II, Division I, Power 5. All these things. Find the place that fits, that's the best fit for you, and factor in everything. Have a plan, because you see a lot of guys making it to the big leagues that didn't play at every big school in the country.
That's right.
And right now it's very difficult for a lot of these 21s and 22s with COVID-19 and the pandemic. And man, with the roster push that we're all having, listen, if you have an opportunity to go play at a good junior college, go do it, man, because that carrot will still be out there for you to come play at a school like LSU.
Yeah.
And I'm answering emails every day from 21s to 22s. It's just like, hey, man, listen, I just can't do anything, and it's not your fault. And don't let that get you down mentally. Keep grinding, keep pushing through, and go find a place to play, put up solid numbers, do good in the classroom. Good things will happen when all this stuff kind of washes away in the next couple of years.
That's great. Well, Coach, thank you so much for having us. To those that are or listening to this podcast, we're going to put show notes at the bottom for you to be able to link up to. If you have any questions, I'm sure Coach Cain would love to answer some if you have any specific for him. Obviously, if you have any on the financial side, we'd love to help you guys out as well. And thanks again for joining us on the MLB Draft Podcast. Look forward to seeing you next time.